What's up, everybody? My name is Scott Paddock, and today I'm going to show you 3 variations on one of the most famous pentatonic sax licks ever. Today we are going to dive into the pentatonic scale, and I am going to show you one of the most famous pentatonic sax licks ever and a couple variations on it. There is a PDF download for this tutorial. I'll put a link in the description below, so make sure you download that PDF so that you can follow along. If you don't already know the pentatonic scale, I have already done some videos on it in the past where I go really in depth. But for today, I'm just going to do a quick recap on it, and we're going to spend most of the time learning this lick and the variations. The pentatonic scale is a shortened version of the regular scale, and there are 2 different types, the major pentatonic and the minor pentatonic. So today we are going to be working with the minor pentatonic. So the 5 notes in the minor pentatonic scale are your 1, your flat 3, your 4, your 5, and your flat 7. So it's 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7. The lick that we're going to learn today is in the key of A minor. So the notes that we're going to be working with are A, C, D, E, and G. Now, once you get this lick down in this key, you can transpose it into any key, but we are going to be working in A minor today. All right, let's learn this lick. So the first thing we need to do is talk about where you would hear the lick. And if you've listened to pop, rock, or funk saxophone, you have 100% already heard this lick. Now, there is one thing that we do need to talk about when it comes to rhythms and writing out a lick when we're talking about pop, funk, or rock saxophone or rock music in general. And that is that the rhythms are crazy. They just look ridiculous. So oftentimes I will simplify the rhythm so that it's a lot easier to read and play. When you look at this rhythm, you can see that it looks very intimidating. It's actually not that difficult to play, but it looks really hard. So when I write these rhythms out, I like to do it in half time. Now, all that means is you just double the value of every note. So if I have a 16th note, I write it as an 8th note. If I have an 8th note, I write it as a quarter note. If I have a quarter note, I'd write it as a half note. So that makes the rhythms a whole lot easier to read and way easier to manage as you're playing through them. Then once you get it down, all you have to do is play it twice as fast. But reading it in halftime is a whole lot easier. So take a listen to this first lick, and then we will break it down. Have you heard this lick before? If so, let me know down in the comments. If you have listened to rock, pop, or funk saxophone, you have definitely heard this lick. So it starts off with 2 8th notes. Now, the articulations are super important in a lick like this. So we're going to play the first 8th note as a staccato, and the second 8th note as kind of like the second part of a swing 8th note. If I was going to do them back to back. So you want those 8th notes to have a bounce to them. You don't want to play them straight, because that just sounds weird. From there, you have a triplet, and you want to bring out the first note of the triplet. Once you get the rhythm down, the lick is pretty easy because it just follows the same rhythmic pattern, but you go down the minor pentatonic scale. So you start on the minor 3rd, then you go down 1 note to the 1, the root, on the A, and then you play the exact same lick starting on the A. Same thing starting on the G. Same thing on the E. And then I put an ending on it. So you're just working your way down the minor pentatonic scale with a cool rhythm. Now, there are 2 things that you need to realize about a lick like this. First, the articulation is really important. If I play this without the articulation, that doesn't sound good at all. So you need to make sure you're articulating it correctly. The second thing is you can't play this lick slow. If you play it slow, it loses all of its energy. So you're going to need to work on this lick and get it under your fingers so you can play it up the tempo. So that is the original lick. Now I'm going to show you a variation just on this original lick, and that is repeating the first two beats. So repeat that over and over. You've heard this hundreds of times in saxophone solos. Saxophone players will use that shortened part of the lick near the end of their solo to build energy towards a really big climax at the top of the solo. Hopefully the band will be there with them, and it'll be a really big moment in the solo. So that is a really cool and easy way to build energy and motion in your solos. If you'd like to dive deeper into the world of improvisation on the saxophone, then I would like to invite you to come check out the Scott Paddock Sax School. In my sax school, I have entire courses dedicated to improvisation, and I have a specialty course that is all about funk improv, where I teach you 10 different funk songs and give you a whole bunch of really great strategies to use when you improvise over a pop, funk, or rock type of song. So if that sounds like something you'd want to learn, then you definitely want to check out that course in my sax school. I'll leave a link in the video description below. Before we talk about the next variation on this lick, make sure you download the PDF. The link is in the video description. So this is what the lick looks like if I write it out the way I would play it. And again, you can see it is very intimidating and looks crazy. It's all sextuplets, and there is a lot of articulation. It's not easy to read at all. So again, I'm going to write it out in halftime so that it is a lot more user-friendly. Now this lick is very similar to the first one, but it is a good bit more difficult. So the only difference is in the first three notes. In the first one, we have those two C's that are repeated. In this one, we have a triplet, and we go C, A, C. Because we're not repeating those C's, it is a lot more difficult because your fingers are moving the whole time. So take a listen to this lick. Here it is slower. So again, all I did was get rid of the repeated note and throw in a triplet, but because your fingers are moving the whole time, it is a good bit more difficult. So let's talk about the articulation. We're going to tongue the first note, slur into the second, and play the third short. The faster you play this, the shorter that note is going to be, this third one. So we're talking about the C. Eventually, if you get going really fast, you barely will even hear the C. So then after the C, you're going to bring out the second triplet. So in this case, the A. It's really important to bring out that second triplet so that the lick has energy and forward motion. So this is what it sounds like. If I don't use the articulations, it's like an entirely different thing. So you definitely want to make sure that you are bringing out the articulation so that your lick has forward motion and a lot of energy. So this variation follows the exact same pattern. I start on the third and then work my way down the pentatonic scale. Then on the root, which would be the A. Then on the seventh, the flat seventh, which would be the G. Then on the 5, which would be the E. And then I put an ending on it. Again, you have to play it at a fairly fast tempo for it to sound correct. But luckily, the lick is fairly easy, and in this key, it fits the saxophone really well. There are going to be some keys where it is a whole lot more difficult, but when we're in A minor, this lick fits the saxophone really, really well. Now, we can use the exact same technique that we used in the first lick, and that is to just repeat the first two beats, and that will give you a lot of energy and help you build some intensity in your solo. For this last variation, we are going to change the rhythm. So we're going to play 16th notes for the whole thing, and we're going to chop off the first note of the lick. So we're going to start on the C and immediately go down the pentatonic scale. So it sounds like this. Slower. So we start on that C and work our way down. Then on the A. then on the G, then on the E, and then we finish the lick. And this is what it sounds like all together. That variation is another super famous pentatonic lick just on its own. I'm sure you've heard that hundreds, if not thousands of times when you've listened to rock, pop, and funk saxophone players. Here is an example of me using these licks in a solo. I'm going to do it over the backing track for Sissy Strut, which is one of the tunes that I teach in the funk improv course in my sax school. So I'm going to start off just by playing these licks, and then I'm going to play an actual solo. When I solo, I'm going to be using mostly the pentatonic scale, but I'm also going to throw in the blues scale note, which would be the flat 5, to make the solo sound a little bit more interesting. So I'll be using the pentatonic scale along with the blues scale, which are the same scale, except the blues scale just adds in the flat 5 and makes it sound a lot more interesting. So take a listen to my solo example. As you can hear, the variations on this pentatonic lick sound really, really good in a solo. So get them under your fingers, and once you've got them down in the key of A minor, learn them in a couple different keys. Have fun working on these pentatonic licks, and thanks for taking the time to check out this video. If you'd like to dive deeper into my saxophone world, come check me out at the Scott Paddock Sax School.